Howdy everyone, Nimby here. Today we're going to be tying a pregnant Gammarus, basically shrimp. A little freshwater shrimp. So let me fight with my thread here for a sec. You run, Rob. You run. We're just going to be using some olive done in 6/0. And I'm going to be starting this actually kind of just in the middle of the hook here. Howdy. So let's start it right here. Here, slippery booger. There we go. Hey, K-Fish Bro. Hey, Jack Pepper. Morning, guys. We're gonna have a quick one this morning because I gotta get the kids to school and get some groceries and stuff, but I'll be back on later. It took me a minute to select a new book to do and all that stuff, so we're gonna be working through some stillwater patterns from Brian Chan and Phil, which are two local famous tyers and fishers, and Brian's also a biologist, so his patterns are very accurate. And I'm just doing like my version of them though. Okay, so what we're doing here is basically just a simple little shrimp pattern. And I just need to find my scudback. There we are. You can tie these with clear scudback, colored scudback. You can tie it with plastic baggies. I did that for years, just used like sandwich bags. The scudback is a little more stretchy, kind of a little easier to use than the sandwich bag because it's already pre-cut. Yeah, if you don't have any scudback, yeah, just grab like a couple Ziplocs. The kind of freezer bags that are slightly thicker and have a little bit of an opaque color to them work a little better. This one's got a kind of a weird kink right there, but we're gonna go with that little piece. But yeah, Ziploc bag is not as durable, but it'll last about as long as all the other points on this fly, anywho. And when you leave it in your bag like that, it will get kind of crumpled up, as you can tell. But just running it through your fingers like this and slightly stretching it, the heat from your fingers will, for the most part, straighten it back out. You see it's already starting to lay flat. Just give me a second to straighten this and then we'll move on. It's already getting a lot better than it was. We only need a small section of this, but I find it's better to cut it into a couple hand length sections like this so it'll fit into your material clip. Working with the shorter bits can be a lot more annoying. Now if you want to buy this stuff in bulk, this is sold in most thread and fabric shops as underwear elastic. You can get this exact same stuff, you know, by the meters and meters and meters of it, super cheap, being sold as underwear elastic. So if you want to save yourself some money and get something outside of the fly shop, or you just don't have a fly shop, that is an excellent way to pick it up. I'm going to be tying this in just up to the halfway point here, because we're going to be changing our dubbing at that point, so it's perfectly fine to have a slight lump of that section anyway. Biggest thing to keep in mind for tying this part in, biggest thing to keep in mind for tying this part in is that you have a tail and you totally forgot to tie the tail in first. That's the biggest part. Okay, we're just gonna pull this forward for a second here, and I'll get the tail tied in. The tail's kind of an afterthought on these flies. They do have little legs that stick out the back. You can use a barred, a saddle hackle. You can use pretty much anything. I'm going to be using these little cast-offs. These are turkey, little turkey cast-offs. But you can use anything you got on your bench that's just leftovers kicking around. And what you're looking for is you want these kind of wispy little ends like this. So anything you got that's got that going for it, it doesn't have to be one type of feather or another at all. It's a really good way to use up some of the scraps that you have from the fluffy ends of your other feathers laying around. So right where you kind of right before the fluff on a, let's see, do I have a feather I can use an example? Yeah, here, this one will work. So the best ones for this is not this fluffy stuff here that you tear off, but just ahead of it, where it's still got a little bit of, like right in here. Oop, let's get you in frame. Like right in here, this is the creamy stuff for this kind of fly, for the tail. So you generally strip that and throw it out anyway, so if you're going to tie up a bunch of these, just get a little plastic baggie and just save them. That's what I did with this turkey. And you can save that. Of course, we'd want to actually do this as a first step before we tie our scud back in, but, you know, do as I say and not as I do. Stay up there for a minute for me, please. Sorry, just a little time sensitive this morning, so I'm not trying to rush myself, but I do have a time limit. There we go. And that's all you want. You just want a little suggestion of a puff of a raggedy tail out the back, just like that. Hopefully you guys can see that. My shirt's probably dark enough, hopefully. And that's it. That's all you need. So those little puffy ends that you normally toss is an excellent use for them if you do want to use up all your material, which most people do. Alternatively, an older style, you can save these parts here and use that as an overwing too. Before they came up with these synthetic overwraps, it was really common to use white turkey or pheasant tail or many other tail fibers or wing fibers to do those caps with. So yeah, another thing, if you don't have scud back, you can do that, but like I said, scud back can be as simple as a Ziploc bag, so you really should have a Ziploc bag kicking around, even if you gotta cannibalize one of your fly tying material bags for it. You should have at least one. In fact, some of my favorite bags that I cannibalized were fly tying material bags. You just want to pull this forward just to make sure that you're not interrupting the tail and that you got it. As you can see, about halfway here, so it's kind of centered down the hook. And if not, you can unwrap it a bit and adjust it. I'm a little hair more on your guys' side of the hook than mine, but that's pretty common on these things. Alright, so right now we're going to be wrapping up to right about here, so I'm just going to even that out. And I want to get a thread wrap all the way to the end, just so that we have thread there, and then back. And we want to start off right at the butt here. We're going to be getting our dubbing in. So, thank you. I'm starting with these flies. I'm going to be doing some traditional stillwater ones from my area here since we finished that other book. The reason I'm starting with this one is it's really good for this time of year. Like, you can still use it for ice fishing, and then it really hits off in like March, April here. So I'm going to be using this olive dub. I would move to a darker dubbing like later in April, they'll get more to this muddy brown color as the sun comes out and they're eating a lot more vegetation. But in the winter, they're going to be a lot more lighter olive like this, and then maybe even like a bright yellow or bright green, almost a chartreuse like this one. So yeah, depending on what time of year you're fishing them, you'll change your color up on them. They do change, the keratin levels in them change, which changes their color throughout the year. I'm just trying to find my wax. Here it is. So our friend for this fly is going to be some Wapsi premium wax. You can use beeswax. If you don't have any tying wax, go to your Home Depot or whatever flavor of home repair store you have handy. Pick yourself up a toilet ring. They're normally only a couple bucks. They're super cheap. And they're about a pound of pure beeswax. And they're already supple. They already have some oils mixed into them to keep them supple. So it's a little bit better, not that you can't go and buy your beeswax from, say, a farmer's market or what have you. But if you buy it from a farmer's market, they do the opposite, and their curing process typically will dry it out, because most people are buying it for making candles and that sort of stuff where you need a structure. Where the beeswax in a toilet ring, you want it to be supple. Okay, so I'm going to be tying this in, or creating a noodle here. This is a really old version of an antron mixed with seal fur dubbing. And it doesn't noodle as well as the modern stuff, but we'll get there with it. Just gotta give it a minute. And you want to make a noodle that's about, ow, I got myself on the hook there. You want to make a noodle that's a couple inches long, 2 to 3, like so. Now if you go slightly over your mark on this, it's not a big deal, because you can go over top of it with the orange that we're going to do in a second here. So now we're just going to wrap this. It's okay if it's a little bit messy because we're going to be pulling down the bottom. We do want to keep it tighter than I am. So this stuff doesn't hold as well as the modern stuff, but it gives you a real neat leggy body after. I'm going to need a fair bit more than that. That ran out pretty quick. Okay, let's get some more. That's fine, we got gobs. I was hoping that would make it up to the top of the curve there, but not quite. So, I may need all this actually. Generally with this kind of harder, if you run into a dubbing that's kind of fighting you a bit, start at the bottom, get the bottom twisted in nice, and then work your way up to the top. And make sure that you're twisting it in, is that counterclockwise or clockwise? That's clockwise. Clockwise rotation. So then when you're wrapping, your wrap puts it in a clockwise rotation, it'll keep it tighter. If you're doing counterclockwise, it'll actually start to unspin as you're spinning. I am doing fine, thank you. Good to have you in. Tommy. Good to have you in, Tommy. Okay, so we're just gonna get up past... Oh, wow, okay. I need just a hair more than that. I thought for sure that would be enough. Okay, this stuff's thinning out faster than I thought it was going to. I'm normally pretty good at judging my dubbing amounts. This stuff's wrapping up a little tighter than I expect, I guess. So I'm probably going to be slightly over here, but like I was saying, that's not a big deal at all because we can just overdub. You do want this middle to be somewhat thick. There we go. Actually, that'll work out just fine, just like that. There we go. Okay, so the next one is going to be this. You're going to put a shuck of orange in there. Now it's common for people to put little orange bits into their shrimp, and quite commonly you'll see it in the middle of the shrimp. There's two different things there. Either way, the fish don't care. They'll eat them up, but it's just a key point. So if you're putting your orange point in the middle, that's actually a type of parasite. But a lot of people think it's a pregnant shrimp. But the ones that form in the middle in their gut is actually a parasite that the shrimp get, and it makes them look like a pregnant shrimp. And that's part of the parasite's whole idea, is to make the shrimp look pregnant, and then it's more appetizing to the fish, which continues the whole cycle of the parasite. So, cool little thing there. But when a shrimp is actually pregnant, it's up front here, just under their legs, their front legs. So it'll be in this section right here. So we just put a little bit of orange tuff there, and then we continue with our green, which I've run out of, so let me grab some more here. We're not going to need a whole lot, we're just going up to the front. Yeah, if you're seeing patterns where there's like an orange bead in the middle of the shrimp, and they're calling it a pregnant shrimp, that's actually incorrect. That is an infected symbiotic relationship, although technically a pregnancy is an infected symbiotic relationship too. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, interesting little tidbit for you there. Wow, this stuff does not want to spin. Come on, buddy. Saying if you can get the bottom started, the top will normally follow suit. There we go. And then just work your way up. Pressure is your friend. So put a good amount of pressure, and the wax will help. The wax doesn't help really as much with the sliding, it doesn't help as much with like stickiness, but it helps with it to slide so that you can marry these two together. There we go. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, Tommy. Good to have you in, mate. I don't want to cover up that orange, I just want to wrap it beside it. And I probably got way too much on there now, of course I do. Just gonna fluff that back a bit, and we'll strip this off. There. And we'll just add that into our pile for the next one. Okay, and this is supposed to look all get out, you know, messy like this. And if you have a little bit sticking forward, that's perfectly fine too. Because we're going to be brushing this down. This is a little bit sticking out much for me, so I'm just going to wrap that. Cool. Always good to go live. Okay, so there's two options here for the front. Some people put little feelers out. I like to. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to switch it up, and we're going to use just some grizzly hackle here. Again, you can just save all your little chunks. You can save all the little chunks that you weren't using for other stuff, and you can use them up on flies like this, so you don't have to feel bad about throwing them out. But yeah, all we need is just a little puff. They have little feelers out the front, so this will represent that. And we're just going to tie that in and cut it off. And again, it's just going to be messy and just sticking out the front. Just a little bit over top. And you just go right over top of your eye. You'll get your line through there, no problem, so don't worry about it. I'll cut that off. The fun thing about these flies is you can be all get out messy with them, and they work better. So you don't have to worry about, oh, Nimby, you forgot your bugger. Okay, if we were tying this fly correctly, Nimby would have tied in his copper thread. after he tied in his scud back. But Nimby did not. So Nimby's going to take his olive thread, and we're going to back that really gently through the scud here. And we're going to do our wrap with our thread. Happy accidents, right? Yeah. Alright. The downside of doing it this way is, for me anyway, it's always a pain for me to get the correct tension when I'm tying with my other hand. You're welcome. Yeah, that's the cool thing about any of these shrimp patterns is there's shrimp everywhere. They're like, and they're all times of year too. So in the middle of winter, it doesn't matter. There's going to be shrimp in the lake. Okay. Like I was saying, the most annoying part of doing it this way for me is I'm not as dexterous with my doing it backwards. So this may not look as good as it would have with a wire wrap. And I always seem to drop the tension on the plant on it too, but we'll get there. Yeah, and like adjust that based on what you're seeing in your water, because typically when you're fishing, you'll see them along the shores or by the reeds or, you know, what have you, right? Alright, well, like, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. And what a lot of people will do here too, if they don't put those feathers out the front, is they'll actually leave this overwrap sticking out a bit, and they'll cut them. Yeah, a lot of people actually keep them in little fish tanks. Let's keep those little tail bits going. But a lot of people will take this, cut it off here, and cut it into a little V in the front, the leftover scud back, instead of putting the little fluff in the front. But what I'm gonna do is a little different. Their first wrap by their head is actually fairly thick, where all of their legs connect. So I'm actually gonna pull this back and then double it up there. That'll also make the halfback, or not the halfback, the scud back a lot stronger on the hook. I'm gonna have to turn this towards me to get this cut off proper. It'll make it a lot stronger, and it won't pull out as easy. Not that that really happens terribly often, especially that since you have it tied down. But that little bump there, for me anyway, it just, like, it's very subtle, but it totally looks like the eyes that they have on them. You can even put a little mono eye on them. Some people will do that, but they have such small eyes that to me that little bump of scudback represents the eyes really well. So simple little thing you can do to just add that one little detail in. The fish will totally care. They totally won't eat it if you don't have little tiny eyes on it. Okay. I'm gonna throw a couple half hitches in over top of this first, just so I can be secure. Hold on, bud. Just trying to not have hair in it. There we go. And if you don't have seal dubbing like this, like, don't worry at all. You can use Antron, works excellent for this. Acrylic yarn works excellent for this. In a lot of cases, synthetics besides seals for all work a treat for this fly. So, and I don't like to admit it, but in a lot of cases they do work better than the natural material. Although I do like my natural material. Okay, so we're going to tie this off just back from the head a little bit, like I said, just to create that first segment. I like to do mine like that. There we go. Hey, I'm on time today. Look at that. Nimby's just rocking it. Okay, cool. Sorry we missed the ribbing there, but everyone gets the idea. If you had your ribbing tied in, you would just bring the ribbing up. There. Yeah, and a natural shrimp, as far as that orange color goes, it's not nearly as bright as you see on a lot of flies. Now, there's a reason for that, because the people that are tying them that way, it's an attractor pattern when you're adding that in. So, you know, the brighter it is, the more the fish keys in on it. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as the natural, right? I'm just using a nylon brush to start here. If we need to move to a coarser brush, I will. We're just going to brush out some of that. And again, we don't need a whole lot. Their legs aren't long, except for the front ones. But we just want to brush out some of that material there. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. That's a really nice little grubby worm. Let's see if we still got our tail going on here. Yeah, we do. Okay. There. Yeah, so you just want to have some coming out the front, which represents their front legs. And then all that mess down below that represents their other legs. And a cap. And I'm just going to cut the overly long stuff off. I don't like it to really be longer than the hook point. So we're just going to trim some of that. There you go. Pregnant Gammarus Shrimp. Fun little messy fly to tie. It doesn't have to be, these are like Tom Thumbs or other patterns where the more messed up they are, the better they work. Yeah, she would have been a cleaner tie if I had the if I had the wire in there. Okay, so I'll do my little spin and spiel. Call it a good one. Might do up some more of these later just so I can do a proper pattern. I'm not rushed as much. Today in the vise we have a Pregnant Gammarus Shrimp. This is tied with a turkey tail fibers. You can also use just grizzly hackle like we have up in the front, and a clear scud back along the top with an olive dubbing with a little bit of just a patch of orange popped in there for the pregnant egg sac. That's up just past the halfway point, up closer to the front legs. And the scud back's tied over top. Really simple little pattern. This is excellent fishing, ice fishing all the way up into March and April. They start petering off in the middle of the summer and late spring when all the other bugs start hatching. But this is a great staple pattern because the shrimp are in the water all times of the year and trout will nail them without asking. So you should always have a couple of these guys in your box. The pregnant version, which has a little orange, pink, or yellow blob in it for the eggs, is always a good one to have. It's just an extra thing that the fish will trigger in on. Yeah, so add a couple of these into your box, eh? There we go. Okay, sorry it's a little bit more of a rushed stream today, guys, but I just got to get my kids to school and get the morning going. But I will be back. I got the day off, so I'll probably be on later today. And then tomorrow I'm going to try and do a big long stream. We're going to try and go for 8 hours tomorrow. There we go. Pregnant Gammarus Shrimp. Thanks for dropping in, everyone. We got Muddy, we got Jack Pepper, we got Tommy, we got K-Fish Pro. We had Robin there earlier. And I think that's everyone this morning. Well, y'all have a good one. Thank you for all dropping in. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you later today.